Welcome everyone. My name is Amber from A Milwy Designs, and I'm here today to demonstrate how I make my paper bag art journals. Okay, stretch and grab the one I've already made. This is the second time I've done this video, right, Sassy? Yeah, she was here. She didn't tell me that there was a problem with my audio, so yeah, that could have been more helpful. But that's okay. We learned some things. We improved some things, hopefully, in theory. So, this is my current paper bag journal. She's ugly. She is not pretty. She's not here to be pretty. She does not want to be pretty. Here's the thing. Whoop. I tend to prefer working in journals that are ugly and messy, and that I feel like I can kind of do anything to. And so, sorry for the paper bag rustling. Sassy is behind me now playing with a paper bag. Actually, the bag you see if you look at the thumbnail for this video. So, recently I made this art journal. See, look how pretty. It's got this wonderful, neat and tidy accordion binding. So you can remove the tab and take pages out. I was really excited. I'd been meaning to make one with this particular structure. But it's pretty, so I keep not reaching for it, especially because it's completely empty. So I don't usually have a huge fear of the blank page. And I am a huge proponent of life's short, use your good art supplies. But it's still a bit daunting when you have something that looks really pretty and hasn't been touched. And, you got to be in the right frame of mind sometimes to want to get in there. So this thing, I have no qualms, no compunctions. I happily open it up and slather paint on it. It's exactly what I did here. I was playing around with something. I had some extra paint. I didn't want to waste it. Boom. Slap it on some pages. Move on. I did this. There's a lot about it that I like. There's some stuff that I don't. I could rip it up at any moment and use it as collage fodder. In fact, my last really ugly journal was a seed catalog that I did not do a good job of turning into an art journal. And I have fairly recently ripped it up so I can reuse various bits from it. I do that a lot. And it's not hard to get the motivation to rip up this because it is what it is, right? So you have these big pockets. If you watched one of my more recent videos where I went through the progress I've been making on some of my Alice in Wonderland journals, I used some smaller paper bags for that, but these big old pockets, they just so much room for all kinds of things. And then I cut the bottom so I could turn that into a pocket. We have this flap. Who knows what'll happen there? This page isn't done yet, but in order to create these pockets that I keep talking about, I will at some point sew down the middle of each of these signatures so that there's a pocket on each side rather than just a big open hole from one end to the other. But yeah, this is an easy thing to just come work in, make a mess in, and not feel weird or guilty or hesitant. And again, I don't mind a blank page so much. I will often grab a piece of paper and just start working. But it's still a lot easier to work in something like this for me than it is to work in something that is very pretty and precious. And when this is done, whatever done may be, maybe I will rip it up and cannibalize it for parts like I did the last one. Or maybe I will decide to memorialize it and put a pretty cover on top. Who's to say? I need to add my little note on top that I put on the first one on the seed catalog, where I designated it for mistakes and experiments only. That had an extra little reminder that, you know, it's for making messes in. And so anyway, speaking of messes, I made a whole new journal today. And then I realized that there was a problem with my audio. And I honestly didn't really like the journal I had made. And I'm not saying that it needed to be nice. Clearly, it can be very ugly, happily. But there were one or two small things I wish I had done differently. So I just pulled the tabs right off of the signatures and decided I'd make it again. I did not, however, expect Miss Sassy here to be quite so needy. So I will talk around her to the best of my ability, or pause, or move her. These two paper bags were not part of the journal I made today. I had intent. Don't eat those. Don't eat those. No. Don't eat those. I had intended to use the stack that Sassy is sitting on. And I had originally pulled the handles off of the Trader Joe's paper bags because I last time didn't want handles, and that's fine. So you can see all of these, I've pulled the handles off or cut them off. Except that while I was discussing the pockets for the first recording of this video, I thought, you know, one of the things that'd be cool is to stuff them full and then have handles and carry your journal on its side. So you don't have to worry about maybe a, you know, giant pocket full of collage fodder, of that fodder spilling out. And suddenly I thought, now I wish I had left the handles on. I've seen some people who use handles in different ways and for closures. I didn't intend to use these bags. They're slightly different size than the others. But I didn't have a whole lot of other ones that had handles still attached. So we're going to make the best of it, which is usually how I go about things. Honestly, I had 3 Trader Joe's bags and 2 plain paper bags from a batch of them that I ordered off Amazon, which is not normally what I would do, and part of the point of this is to use trash and scraps. Except that I had a request to film a video demonstrating how I make this journal, and I didn't have any more paper bags at the time, and I usually use reusable bags and wasn't sure when I would have another batch of bags to work with again. So I went ahead and ordered some. Then I ended up going to Trader Joe's unexpectedly, and I forgot my bags, and I ended up with those 3. And then I went to visit a friend of mine, and we went out, and I got something that came in a paper bag, and I said, I'm going to keep this, and she said, you can have all of the ones I've been collecting, and she had a massive stash that she'd been saving for no reason, because she's not going to make art out of them. So I took those too. So that's where these Whole Foods bags came from. And so that means I removed 2 of the Trader Joe's. I thought 1, 2. I think I removed the wrong bag. Hold, please. Yeah. Aha. Do we have the right ones? Now we have the right group of bags. I didn't just want to add these 2 new ones to the already growing pile, because you may have noticed that the other one I made was rather chunky, and that's nice in theory, but a couple of things to note about making a paper journal or paper bag journal. One, they're kind of squashy. You get an awful lot of bounce and movement that you wouldn't normally get in a typical paper journal. And so particularly if you're collaging, and that's a lot of what I do, and especially in a journal like this, a lot of what I do, it can be a little bit challenging to really adhere papers well because of that bit of bounce. You don't have a hard surface that you are collaging them onto. It's more likely to produce bubbles. It's a lot. So a couple of things. One, I use a book board, which is really just a fancy name I gave the back of a paper pad after I used up all the paper. And I will just put it inside. There we go. Come on. Put it inside the pocket for the part of the journal I'm working in so that I have a harder surface to work over. So I do highly recommend that. I want you to be aware of what you're getting into when it comes to a paper bag journal. And I figure that if I make one that uses fewer bags and isn't quite so chunky, that'll also help reduce a little bit of the give. The other thing is, when I open this up, there's quite a big difference between this side of the journal and this side of the journal. That, however, is easy to deal with because of the tab binding. So I can just flip this in half, open it like that, and now I have a nice even spread. So something to keep in mind about a binding like this. Again, Sassy Cat is over there destroying a piece of paper packaging that I got today that is not part of this project. So let's talk supplies. You need paper bags. I am limiting myself to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You will need something that you can create little tabs out of. I'm going to use the snippet roll I made because I need to use these up. I keep forgetting about them. So I'm going to use that and cut essentially some paper strips that we're going to use as tabs to bind the journal. And then you'll need some reliable glue. Sorry, my mind went blank. I would not necessarily recommend glue stick unless you have one you really swear by that's performed really well for you. I will say Oohoo does work pretty well for me in that way. And so if that's all I had on hand, I would use that. But I tend to get stronger and better results from some of the liquid glues that I use. I do have Nuvo in this bottle. This is a refillable bottle that I think currently has barely arts in it, if I remember correctly. Either of those tend to work really well for me when it comes to getting a nice hold. So just any glue that you've worked with that you know holds really well, or something like Barely Arts, Art Glitter Glue, Nuvo Glue. Those are the ones I've used personally that I can recommend. You're going to want some scissors to cut your tabs. That's pretty much it. It's a really simple project in terms of supplies. I am going to keep my tabs a little shorter than when I recorded this earlier, because one of the things that I did not like was that I left more space between the signatures than I wanted to. And I didn't realize it at first. I thought I was making it a lot like my other one that I had already made. If you noticed, those tabs have some space between each signature because I expect the journal to expand quite a bit and I expect to use some chunky things. But the the spacing on the one I made earlier today, honestly, was just bordering on the ridiculous. I wish that I could remember exactly how many tabs I used, and I could probably calculate it if I really wanted to, but I don't feel like it, so I'm not gonna. So I am precise when I have to be. Like, I've done enough quilting in my life. I'm precise when I have to be. But only when I have to be. Otherwise, I am from the wing it school, and we prefer to just try things and see what happens. The first time I made this video, the tabs were really wide and they were getting in each other's way. So I will say, think about that when you are cutting your tabs. We're going to alternate sets of 3 and 2 tabs, and they're going to sit side by side. So you need something that essentially can support at least 5 without them getting in each other's way. You could do more or fewer tabs. You're just going to want to do even and odd numbers. So let's just start. And I will say, once again, I call this a demonstration and not a tutorial. I am not a tutorial girl. I think that tutorial is a very specific word that you use when you have done a lot of planning and carefully put together your process so that you can methodically and slowly and without mistakes, mostly, show someone how to do something from, step 1 all the way through. I know how to do those things. I do not enjoy doing those things. I am a demonstration girly. So if you want a tutorial, I highly recommend Natasha at Treasure Books. She has one that's, I'm pretty sure, what I used to learn how to do this. And she didn't do paper bags, but she did tab binding. And the process is going to be the same, whether you're doing paper bags or signatures that are more traditional. And in fact, I think it'd be fun, not tonight, this is not what I'm doing today, but I do think it would be fun to make a journal with paper bags where you have a signature sewn inside, and then tab bind those signatures like we're doing here. I'm going to save myself some grief, and am I? Maybe? Yeah. I'm going to at least cut the bottom of one of these. I did that after the fact earlier today. It wasn't fun. To be honest, though, I'm not going to do it for all of them, I don't think, because who wants to sit through that? I don't even want to sit through it, and I'm making the video. But this is how I get a pocket on each side. So, natural pocket, extra pocket. I did that also. This is the one that I cut in the middle of the other video. I made a mistake on how to cut it, but now I have like a cool little closure situation. So it's not the end of the world. That one, I cut the bottom off, and then I cut a bit of the rest of the bottom off. And I left this very bottom panel on. So I would recommend that you experiment a little, probably before putting all of your journals together into one book. Okay, maybe I will. Maybe I will take my own advice. Oh, hold please. That was spam. They say hi. I did not realize I left my ringer on. Okay, I'm going to cut this one. And really, you can do this after. Like I said, it's just a little easier to do it when they're not all stuck together in a book form. But you can do anything you want at any time because it's your journal. Okay. So now I can fold that to create a little tabby thing or make a weird closure again. I don't honestly even remember exactly what happened there. I just know that I cut, and then I cut a little more, and then I went, oops. And then I went, oh, hey, I think I can save this. And I made that little closure thingy, and it almost looked intentional. But I honestly not entirely convinced I could repeat it if asked. Okay. I don't know. I'm not going to cut that one. I'm going to be surprised. But I'm going to cut this one. So I'm going to cut all but one. Is that really the plan we're going with, Amber? I'm not sure it is. That feels like something I will regret in hindsight. And I do try to avoid regrets when possible. Okay. Cool. I'm telling you, it felt so good about that video earlier today, too. I was singing, I was talking to myself, I was making all kinds of mistakes. And then you couldn't hear any of it. Okay, this is the order I want these in. Now, most of the time I just say put them in any order that you fancy and go on vibes. That's usually what I do. But since I want to have this whole carryable by a handles kind of a situation, I do feel like the bags with the handles should be on the end with the handle side of your signature facing out. So it's both the top and the bottom. I have my little strippy-doos. Again, make sure that they are thin enough that you can fit 5 across if you're doing what I'm doing. If you choose to do 3 or 7 or 9 or 21, then you make the strips according to the size that makes sense for that journal. And God help you. All right. So I applied glue here and then switched gears and cut pockets, but we'll go back. So strip number 1, I'm going to take this strip, place it pretty close to the top of the journal on the outside front of the journal. And we are going to do 3 strips on this front part of the journal. By the way, you may have noticed in the first journal I made like this, that my strips are really ugly. They're just like old beige seam binding that I wanted to use up. So they're not pretty at all. These are actually kind of attractive. They will probably still get covered when all is said and done, but they look kind of nice. How far am I putting the glue, etc.? I'm just winging it. I want to make sure that there is some room between where I'm gluing here and where I will eventually glue on this side so that the journal has room to move and expand and not be overly tight. But that's it. So I'm going to go ahead. So you see, we now have 3 tabs attached to the front of the journal. So I'm going to flip it over here and move on to this one. I'm going to actually swap you for you. Yeah, because then I can cover up those bad boys. Okay, so we did 3 on the front. And now we're going to alternate and do 2 tabs on the front of the second signature. And that is an important part of this. There's not a lot that you can get wrong. This is one of the things that it would behoove you to do correctly. Although, you know, it's paper and glue. And I ripped mine apart from earlier and I'm remaking it now. So like, don't put too much pressure on yourself. Okay, so the front of this one, 3 tabs. The front of this one, 2 tabs. And one thing I should have mentioned is that it is important that your 2 tabs nest between your 3 tabs. I did not space these well. The world will not end. So do my 2 tabs on this one, flip. And we're going to alternate back to 3 tabs on the front of this. But before we do that, I'm going to close the loop on the first 3 that I did and attach them to the back of the second signature. Okay, so the front of the first signature gets 3 tabs, and those attach to the back of the second signature. The front of the second signature has 2 tabs, and in a moment you will see that those get attached to the back of the third signature. Now I am still leaving a little bit of wiggle room. I'm not putting those tabs on as tightly as possible. There is a little bit of give, and like I mentioned, that's just so that I have some room for this journal to get a little bit bulked up and not immediately turn into a massive gator mouth. And if you look, let's see if I can see, there's just a little bit of a gap in there for those tabs. And that is what I'm looking for. It was pretty massive in the first video I did today. Oy. All right, so let's recap. 3 on the front of signature 1. 2 on the front of signature 2. Attach the first 3 to the back of signature 2. And now 3 on the front of signature 3. You could think of it as putting 3 tabs on the signatures that are odd numbered and 2 tabs on the front of the signatures that are even numbered, if you want. But that's the biggest thing here, is remembering to alternate like that. And I should have put that even further up. Let me get a little wipe off that glue. I've got much more space this time than I allowed myself the last time around, but it's still nice when you can make things sort of look intentional, at least a little. All right. So we got our second of 3. Third of 3. And then, now that we've got our 3 tabs, flip and take the 2 tabs from the front of signature 2 and put them on the back of signature 3. So we're just alternating. And it can feel a little weird, that alternation, because it makes sense only if you think of alternating the fronts, the number of tabs on the front, or the number of the tabs on the back. It can get confusing if you try and make more sense of that than that. Yeah. All right. So if I look here, this signature had 3 tabs on the front. So this signature will get 2 tabs on the front. And I need to cut more tib tabs. Tibber tubbers. All right. Sure. That seems long enough. Ish. That one's a little longer. the nature of the collage on this snippet roll just drastically changed. Awesome. Not mad at that at all. Cut them in half again so they're not massively wide, because then they will not fit in a nice neat row, especially since I am not measuring or in any other way ensuring correct and tidy spacing. Really is a me problem. Just so you'd know, I am a recovering perfectionist. Anyone who knew me 20 years ago would be shocked to see me slapping stuff down like this. And honestly, art for me is a big part of rebelling against that perfectionism. So like I said earlier, if I don't need to be precise about something, I don't. And I do that as intentionally as I possibly can because I know it's important for me. So let's take these 3 and put them on the back of the signature that we just slapped 2 on the front of. So yeah, if you really pay attention to the types of stuff that I work with the most, at least in my art painting practice, you will see that it is full of things that I purposely cannot control. Watercolor, jelly printing, pigment powder. Pigment powder is probably the least controllable the way that I use it, and kind of gets me every time. Like that one's still hard for me to sometimes accept the chaos of it, but I also really, really love it. So I use it as much as I can. All right. Now, because of the journal I ripped up from earlier today, you are getting, obviously, clues. But as a reminder, the front of this had 2 tabs, so the front of this will have 3. I'm trying to pretend that I don't have those little ripped off markers there. But it's kind of hard to do. They're very prominent. They will most likely get covered up as I work in this journal, unless I decide I want to feature them because they're so delightfully messy and textured and interesting. So, you know, I guess we'll find out. You will see that I like making messy journals. If you watch the video I just did, that's also me creating a messy journal of a different type. So I am no stranger. All right, there's our 3. So we'll flip and we will glue the 2 from the front of the previous signature onto the back of this one. And then we will be done with tabs. And you're thinking, no, we still have a whole signature left. Ah, yes. But it has no signature behind it for us to tab things to. I am lifting up this flap so that the tabs go underneath it, because I don't have any idea if I'm going to want to use that in any interesting sort of way down the road. I don't want to limit myself. So putting those underneath that flap. And so if I had more signatures, I would of course put more tabs on the front of this. And then they would eventually get put on the signature behind this one. But since there is no signature behind this one, we don't need the front tabs. We only need to attach our back tabs. So just kind of making some show of attempting to line this up properly. Oh, I'm so messy. With this kind of thing, I really am. With other journals, I tend to be tidier, even if I'm going to make a big mess in them. But it's really hard to be super precise and tidy with a paper bag journal. It just is. This is really great for people who are trying to have a more loose, messy, and mistake permissible art journal situation. So when I made this video the first time around, I was going to call it something like how not to put together a paper bag art journal. But in this case, I actually think the steps were fairly clear and I didn't make as many mistakes. So I don't know that I can use that particular title this time around. But oh, let's take a look. This is nice, you guys. Because now, look, you got collage fodder you want to put in there. You want to pack an additional journal. This is my W journal. I love this bad boy. Boom. Just fits right in. You could put, I have travel watercolors that are they're on paper, the Viviva watercolors. And so they're like a little matchbook of paint practically. You could stick those in and take them anywhere with you. The handles make me happy. I'm no longer mad that I had to redo the video. Did I like the audio on that first video? Yes, I thought I was very entertaining. But this is a better demonstration. I'm still not going to call it a tutorial. You can't make me. I hope this answers your questions about how to create a paper bag journal, especially one with handles. And again, like you can see, you're going to have a bit of give. So be prepared to put some cardboard or something else stiff in the pockets or under pages in some way, or be aware that some of your collage just may not layer up or glue down quite as neatly as usual. That really is, for me, the biggest drawback to this. But look, we have this little extra bit of space. That's why we left that space between gluing those tabs so that you can really fill this up. So one of the things that I've been making lately is corrugated cardboard that I've been painting and distressing and doing stuff to. And I figured I would probably use it in this or my other paper bag journal. And so you have space for chunky layers of stuff like that and space to put things in all of these wonderful pockets. If you have any questions, please comment below and let me know. Is this something that you would try yourself? I would love to hear if so, or if you have other tips or ideas, if you've done it yourself before. I want to hear all of it. Thank you for sticking around and watching how this came together. If you liked this video, please give it a like. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe and hit the bell and select all so you can get notified of all of my videos going forward. And yeah, hopefully see you again soon.